So thank you everybody for coming. Just to make sure, is this volume okay? Can everyone hear me?
A little louder.
All right.
A little louder, please.
Great. So just last week, I was spooked. Actually, this starts when I get a voicemail from my friend, and he tells me that somehow he got an email from my account asking for a ransom of $900 to his Bitcoin account. It's supposed to be my Bitcoin account. Sure, I sent that email, I told him, thinking it was a joke at the time, and not really realizing the grave, serious nature of this matter. The fact is, my email account had been used in one of many spoofing attacks, one that will happen approximately 681 million times from the time I just stood up here to the time I finished talking. Email accounts, regardless of the domain usage or not, are used in these spam attacks. And there's also a high preponderance of them to be used intentionally to scam unknowing people. Thankfully, my email that had apparently been sent from myself, of course, which it had not, showed up in his spam inbox, once again reaffirming our belief in the systems of servers to be able to filter out what is a passing email, what is an authenticated email versus one that is not. However, America, as a country, faces much graver problems than that. American businesses lose over $100 billion each year in just defending their website's integrity and making sure that even state-sponsored acts of cyber terrorism don't threaten them from carrying forth their business day to day. As a matter of fact, it's a very well-known fact that scammers and hacktivists alike enjoy being able to take money from the unwilling you and I and turn that into both an ordered profit for themselves, as well as being able to draw capital from businesses here that lose money in these terrible acts of terrorism. And this also raises other concerns, perhaps to something that's more intimate to each of us as Americans, and not so much about the green and the dollars and bills that run businesses, but rather to our political framework. In the 2016 presidential election, it's no strange fact to anyone to hear that there was a high preponderance of fake news going on, and news stories that blatantly claimed lies in an attempt to be able to gain leverage for a political party. And this ties back to the fact that we as a country are facing significant problems with keeping what is true and what is not on the internet separate from each other. Those who cry out with the fire and fury of being able to prevent this moral disregard and behavior from defaming people of their just titles and honors via mediums on the internet is a significantly endangering fact for our society. However, at the same time, the preponderance of fake news is nothing new. In 2003, the collective anonymous group, known as Anonymous, began taking many operations against censorship and promoting freedom of speech that resulted in sometimes even political actions by governments in well-developed countries to suffer as a consequence, in countries like Australia, Germany, and many times here in the US. And in 2006, a very dangerous cyber worm known as the storm worm took flight, enticing people to click on fake news headlines. In fact, something that worked surprisingly well, as it took down even France's Air Force for a period of a week. So when we really look at the integrity of identity and anonymity on the internet, is it really a point worth pursuing for our next generation to be able to grow up in a society where they believe that anonymity on the internet is an inherent right rather than a privilege, where the usage and the preponderance of items such as virtual private networks, proxies, the now compromised and infamous Tor browser are our tools to be able to stay untraced and preserve our right to be forgotten on the internet? These are all moral and ethical questions that we have to take seriously into consideration for our next generation if we want to be able to carry out a sustainable period of growth and integrity as a society. We can't let ourselves be frayed by the unfortunate facts that crime is used to perpetuate terrible acts resulting even in ominous death threats sent to individuals across the country, all because of the right to remain anonymous on the internet is something that, again, is taken as a right rather than a privilege. Think about this for a second. 3/4, if not even more, of the internet saturation comes from people in the Americas, Europe, and Asia. When we really look at the ability for us to be able to pull out our handheld computer and bring up Google's familiar search bar, it should be very clear to us that using the internet, even in that short instance, is a privilege and not a right.